Well, what is going on, Movie Bills? Look at this. There's three of us today for the OGs. Another Happy Landing co-host is back because that's what we're doing right now, baby. We're landing happily one more time. We're here to for podcast. I think this is episode 22 of the podcast. Trying to make it back a little bit more consistent here with Kyle and I, but there's been so much Star Wars talk, celebrations in 11 days. I thought, hey, let's bring Tan Man back on, and let's just talk Star Wars. Everything in the world of Star Wars today. So, Kyle, Tanner, how you both doing?
Good. How about yourself? Kyle, tell me.
Fighting off a cold over there,
Kyle.
huh?
Oh, poor me. Came back from vacation and I got sick along the way, but it's just a cold. I'm all good. Just, it's annoyed. But I'm glad Tanner's doing much better.
Oh no, I gotta go back. Oh no, I gotta go back to work. Oh, I'm sick. Oh no.
Now you're getting it. Keep up the act.
Things are good over here. I was literally wrapping. I was watching the last few minutes of The Mandalorian today, and then the power went out. So that was super exciting. I loved that. And we're waiting for it to come back.
Hope that happens.
Well, Kyle and I haven't been talking about Mandalorian yet on the channel. I know Kyle has said he thinks it's pretty underwhelming so far compared to last season. I agree with him to an extent, but Tanner, what are you thinking of season 3 so far?
I'll start with the positives on it. I think this season you can tell they have just gone full bore with the budget on stylization. The chase sequences, the CGI that they've been using has been through the moon with how good it is. And I love those moments. However, oh man, it feels so aimless right now. There's story-wise, I'm just kind of like, where are we going? And I'm just kind of waiting for that, big moment to come of, okay, here's the goal for the season of exactly what we're trying to do. Because I feel like we don't have that. Other than that, I mean, weirdly enough, I actually think one of my more favorite episodes from watching this was the episode that didn't even have Mandalorian, or the Mando in it, with, the cloning doctor.
Following the clone guy.
Yeah. No,
yeah, for sure.
I was like, I don't understand this. I feel like there's no connection with this episode, and maybe it's just a seed that's being planted right now of some rumblings that are happening. But that was a really cool thing, I think, to try showing how Imperials are being reintegrated into the New Republic and so on. That was a nice bit. Yeah,
I agree. Did you like Andor, Tanner?
Andor is literally everything that I've wanted from Star Wars. Dude.
Let's go, baby.
Andor, it's so funny. I remember all of us having a conversation of Andor's coming out. It's something. We'll see what happens. And then it turns out to be no joke.
Yeah. In
my opinion, I think it is the best piece of Star Wars content since the original trilogy. That's
fair.
It's high praise, I know, but oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. What about you guys?
I agree. I think it's the best thing, really, that they've put out. And that episode you're talking about, a Mandalorian, felt Andor to me. It felt, let's tell a character story for a minute here and not necessarily focus on big picture. And I dug it a lot. I do think Mandalorian Season 3 has struggled in its... Without the focus being, okay, who is Grogu? To, okay, now I know who he is, I need to return him to his family. And now it's, okay, we're the family. And now we're just kind of doing whatever. And I think they're going to get to the point where they retake Mandalore. I think we're going to get a big, cool battle. That'll be awesome. I think the show has had good highs. but it's just not hitting. The hype doesn't feel there from episode to episode because the whole episode as a whole, even if there's really cool scenes in that episode, I'm not necessarily like gunning for what's coming next. It's not like, oh my gosh, they're stuck. Who's going to save them? Is it going to be Luke? Is it going to be Plo Koon? Who's it going to be? So, I'm digging it. I still like the show, but plus it's coming off the heels of Andor, and Andor was freaking phenomenal. But, so Tanner, you're all caught up,
yes,
right? With Mando?
I'm up to date. I'm up to date on Mando right now. But oh man, I'm still enjoying the ride. It's just so far it is the weakest season. That's all I have.
Yeah. How?
Sorry, go for it.
How much did you freak out when Ahmad Best shows up? Spoilers for Mando right here. When he shows up,
that was incredible.
As our boy.
That was so cool. That blew my mind. I was like,
I loved it.
Dude, the fact that they were able to actually go in and talk to him and be like, hey, I want to bring you back into Star Wars. Let's do this again. It felt like just like coming around of like, we're bringing you back, man. We want you back in it. We know what you're capable of. Oh, it was poetry.
And so, because Kyle brought this up, so I'm going to mention this real quick. So the Jedi he plays is Carillion Beck, and that's the character. So Ahmad Best has been on a show on Disney Plus for a year or two now, where it's like a Ninja Warrior style show for kids, and he plays the Jedi Master of Carillion Beck as live action, and he's training younglings. And so he's not necessarily playing a character, but he is playing a character, and I think that's so cool, not only to bring him back, but that it's his character on this kind of goofy show where kids are competing through the Jedi trials, and that he's the one to show up and save Grogu, that he's the one to be like, no, I've got to save the younglings. I've got to get them out. I think that was just cool. What a way to honor him. Kyle, what did you think of it?
Of that moment? Yeah, I thought it was cool once I recognized who the actor was, just because it was a good comeback in a sort of ways for him specifically, because he went through quite the, I imagine, mental emotional turmoil of the bullying after what he was told to do with the portrayal of Jar Jar Binks. So I thought that it was cool on that level, because we've seen, kind of some redemption arcs when it comes to the prequel trilogy anyway, so he deserves to be among those to get that as well. I did not know about this show or the specific character that he plays, but it sounds like enough of a deep cut in a way to where I was fine with that reveal, because I was worried that they were going to pull some member berries that Star Wars kind of does lately, in my opinion, too much, with like, ooh, maybe it'll be a reveal of one of these other Star Wars characters you know about that takes him and saves him or whatever. I like that it was probably a deep cut character that fans know about, but enough of a, at least for me as like a general viewer of this stuff, to where I'm like, oh, it was just a Jedi, but it was kind of a cool way because of the actor's story. All right, I'm down for that. So that was a cool reveal, just from a general point of view.
What about Kyle? I'm really curious.
Yeah,
I'm really curious as to. So we've heard our opinions on Mando season 3. I'm really curious what your opinion is.
Like Alex said, I'm a tad bit underwhelmed, but I still think the quality is good within the show. It just feels like they're trying really hard to make this a character's journey arc, especially when it comes to Bo-Katan, but unlike Andor, which knows how to do that subtly but push the story forward, it doesn't feel like Mandalorian knows how to push the story forward while doing that character-driven narrative at the same time. I think there still could be a lot of potential to where we come around on this season, but just for right now, I'm in the boat of, like, I'm enjoying my time here, but I'm not seeing quite the progression of this character's journey, especially since we're focusing so much on Bo-Katan now, to as much as I would like there to be a progression. Not that I'm saying that we need a rush for big climactic action-packed battles, but there does need to be progression of at least a hint of a direction, and I just don't quite get that yet. I was kind of hoping to be there a bit sooner, especially with a show that's not a traditional 22 episode arc, but rather a 8 episode arc, something like that. So that's just the frustration that I have with the show, but I still think the quality is still there. It just is having a hard time with that part.
Yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of that assessment. It's kind of that we're getting some fun moments, and I think some fun exploration of the Mandalorians, but like, where are we going, guys? Because I don't know. Season two, it's like, okay, we're gonna get him back to his family. Season 1, we just gotta save the kid. And we're this rough, gruff bounty hunter that's all of a sudden turned into having the heart of gold. But also, why are the Mandalorians on Space Australia? Like, can we find a better place that's not?
I just think they're idiots.
Not constantly trying to kill you.
No, you can only be desert, ice, grass, forest. There's no other options. Except for Mustafar, but that's for Vader only.
I have a hard time with Mandalorian lore stuff in Star Wars to begin with, so for this season to go very heavy into it is also a frustration of mine, personally. Just because, like, the Black Saber stuff, the Mandalorian lore stuff, it just doesn't gel with me. Like,
Black Saber rocks.
I don't care about it myself.
It's also called the Dark Saber.
So for this season to especially... What was that?
Sorry, go for it. I said,
I was just gonna say,
lose your mind at the great mythosaur in the water, in the living waters. I mean, come on, we all know what that is.
The mythosaur, baby.
Not even a little. I can guarantee you that. Yeah.
I do think that they're getting to the point where we might need to do a time skip. If this show's going to continue, we can't have him be baby Grogu, baby Yoda forever. Yoda says, I'm training Jedi for 800 years, and he dies when he's 900 years old. The guy, that's a 100-year gap. He's a baby at 50, and he's 52 right now. There needs to be some acceleration. So I hope that if they're going to do a season 4, they do do a time jump and let him just suddenly have a giant growth spurt and let him have abs. I want to see it.
Let's sex him up, man. I bet you.
Might as well.
Is like kind of a Star Wars thing to say, because I'm sure for the casual audiences, they're like, "Don't you dare touch baby Grogu." Like, we're keeping him at this cute age.
He can't stay a baby forever.
I did think
I am a sexy.
That's Disney right there.
I'm a sexy Grogu stan. Let's fucking see them 6-pack abs. I want to see them pecs. Let's fucking go. There's too much. You know what? At this point, there's too much armor on him.
Wild.
At this point. Just saying.
Yep. Might be. All right. Let's get into the main topic here. So I'm going to go through. Kyle and I have touched on this before. Tanner and I also touched on this back on Another Happy Landing a while back. You can check those out to get more in-depth thoughts on a lot of these different things. We're going to kind of run through it because there's just been more stuff. So I've got the list of everything that's happened, right? So George Lucas sells in 2012 to Disney. In 2012. They very quickly start production. Well, let's really get into it here. So George even gave him a treatment for 3 movies. And this is after years of George saying there will not be a 7, 8, and 9. The story ends with Luke. He said that in interviews. And he then goes, okay, I do have ideas. There were rumors he had ideas in the past as well. But he was like, nah, I'm not going to make it or whatever. He sells it. He gives him a treatment. The treatment is rumored to have been about a young girl on a desert planet who has to go find a grumpy Luke. That is in the treatment. That's the rumors. That's what George's idea was. I have to throw that out there because we're going to get there. But anyway, so they go ahead and they work on episode 7 with JJ. Episode 7 comes out. Episode 8 comes out. Those are the only 2 that are currently on the list of Star Wars movies that didn't have any production problems during filming. They didn't lose anybody. They didn't have anybody come in. Those are the only 2 projects that they have made where they have been pretty much successful. I think you can count Mandalorian probably in there for more of the newer things. But even recently, there's been rumors that Jon Favreau has been livid at Kathy Kennedy, that she's getting her hand too much in his sandbox. But looking at the timeline, Gareth Edwards made Rogue One. It was rewritten and reshot by Tony Gilroy. According to new reports, I don't know if you guys have heard this, Dave Filoni is actually the one who came in and came up with the Vader sequence, and he directed and shot that sequence of Vader in the elevator, which is the best, or in the hallway. Best part of the whole movie. But there's now reports, and that came from Freddie Prinze Jr. on his podcast said that. He's like, I don't care. I don't do Star Wars anymore. I'm spilling secrets. He's like, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to anyway. This is what happened. So that happens. They had a ton of production problems. Josh Trank was supposed to make a Boba Fett movie years ago after Fan4tastic. He's out. They then make the Disney Plus show, which also had some meddling and problems apparently with, we need to have Mando in this show. We want to sell Mando more. We need to do things. You know, there's a huge episode about Mando in Boba Fett that has really nothing to do with Boba Fett, but it's all about Mando. These are issues they're having. Lord and Miller, they make Solo a Star Wars story. We have heard, Tanner and I really did a deep dive on that back in the day, but there's tons of problems. Ron Howard comes in to fix it. Colin Trevorrow writes, he's telling Daisy Ridley, here's how episode 9 is going to end. She is in tears. She loves the ending. That is rewritten by J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio to then get the atrocity and just awful movie we have gotten. Following that, we are supposed to get a Stephen Daldry Obi-Wan Kenobi movie that turns into Deborah Chow's Obi-Wan TV show, which also had production problems. Production was shut down because Kathy didn't like some of the stuff happening. They reshot and redid so much of that show. James Mangold is supposed to do a Boba Fett TV show or movie. He comes off that project. We then get the one we have now. Benioff and Weiss from Game of Thrones are supposed to write and produce an entire Star Wars trilogy, rumored to be Old Republic prequel. Never happens. Game of Thrones Season 8 comes out. Kathy goes, oh, you've never made anything good apparently. Get out of here. Patty Jenkins, Rogue Squadron, gets put on indefinite postponement. We have now more recently heard that Patty Jenkins' movie is off the table, along with Kevin Feige, who was also brought in around the same time, that him and Taika Waititi are supposed to, or that Taika Waititi is supposed to maybe make a Star Wars movie, write and direct. Kevin Feige's going to produce maybe a separate one. All of that is now off the books, except for Taika is apparently still working on his, possibly. J.D. Dillard, apparently years ago, this was while ago, comes in and apparently wows Lucasfilm with a story and script idea. He gets taken off. Rian Johnson still is saying, hey, I've got a trilogy. Where's my trilogy? I'm waiting. I'm going to do Knives Out first. But everybody has been saying, Rian Johnson, Kathy, everybody at Lucasfilm is like, we would love for him to do his trilogy. And he's still just like, I'll do it one day, maybe. So we get that. Then the more recent news is Kevin Feige's off. Patty Jenkins is out for sure. And then they announced that Damon Lindelof, who has made nothing but phenomenal content. I mean, Damon Lindelof, the most recent thing he has done is Watchmen, but he made The Leftovers. He worked with JJ on Lost. He has made some great movies and great TV shows. The Leftovers is phenomenal. Watchmen's phenomenal. He's apparently built this writer's room, and they're in Star Wars now. This is what's happening. Writer's room. He's controlling it. We're focused on one Star Wars project. Just the other day, it gets announced that Damon Lindelof is not making it. He, in an interview, said if it's not the best it can be, it shouldn't be made. And so he had stepped away. Sounds like it wasn't what he thought was the best. Was it? Maybe it was production who said this isn't what we want. And he put his foot down and said, I'm either making this script or I'm out. But now it's supposedly Stephen Knight, Peaky Blinders writer, who is coming in to now head, I believe, this writer's room. But that's a lot. And that has been since 2015. It hasn't even been 10 years. And that's a lot of announcements. That's a lot of problems.
No.
I miss Star Wars being amazing, but let's start here. We'll go one at a time. Kyle, what are your thoughts about everything just to begin with here?
Not to dogpile on all that, but there was also, yeah.
Did I miss one?
Or maybe I missed what you said, but Sean Levy, who has directed things like Free Guy and Real Steel, was also hired on for a project. But I'm pretty sure. Well, actually, no, I haven't heard anything that it is postponed or shut down or anything. So that's still floating out there too.
Who was it again that you just said? Sean Levy. I can't believe I forgot. I'll double check it right now. But what do you think about everything else?
Just the same thing that we've been talking about on this podcast and on this show is that for a franchise this important for a company, but also for people, that it shouldn't have this much floundering and pushback and cancellations. It's not, I mean, there's studios with a lot of projects where there's just so much behind-the-scenes drama that, you know, there's probably so many stories like this behind the scenes, but it's just the fact that it's become so public, and it's just become like a running joke at this point, that it just makes this franchise look terrible and of way less value than it was previously, to where you hear directors, writers, such as like Christopher McQuarrie, who's done like the Mission Impossible movies, great movies, and he's saying, look, I don't want to be a part of that. And not to mention, like, the fan base also is probably part of the reason why creators don't want to be a part of this either. They just don't want to deal with that noise, which is fair. So, but you could also say, like, they're also making lots of noise because of Star Wars floundering behind the scenes. So, just a lot of frustrations for everyone all around. And I just was in the back of my mind hoping this Lindelof project would be the final cap to everything, to where we're going,
the one to happen.
This is the project, nothing else. This is what matters for like a theatrical release of Star Wars. And even still, they dropped the ball on it. And granted, this one doesn't seem as dramatic. It just seems like Lindelof is really proud of his work and that it just didn't go his way. Unlike other stories, I would say is the opposite of that. But even still, it's just very, very frustrating all around, to say the least.
Sean Levy is still making his Star Wars movie. There's no news that his movie is not moving forward.
Which means it's probably dead.
Well, as of now. And before, Tanner, we'll get to you in a second, I do want to add, when the report came out, they also, because Star Wars Celebration's in 11 days, there's reports that they will be announcing 3 movies. That there will be 3 big updates or something like that towards movies. It's either 3 movies or 3 big updates, something like that. But there will be big updates, supposedly 3, for the movies. But Tanner, what do you kind of think of everything here?
It is just crazy to me how public this has become, and just how much chaos is happening behind the scenes. And it also makes you think about, like, if we're hearing this much, what is it really like behind? What is genuinely happening behind the scenes is just shocking to me. But I almost have to wonder if there's 2 major flaws that I feel like I continue to observe as time goes on. Is too many cooks in the kitchen, and let's like back off on the level of releases. Like, I understand that Disney loaded an absolutely absurd amount of money in order to get Lucasfilms and the rights and IP to Star Wars, Indiana Jones, so on.
$2 billion.
Yeah, and I mean,
pocket change.
So there's a point in time where it's like you want to be able to make money off of that and be able to like turn a profit. I understand that, but it much akin to kind of how I'm feeling with Marvel as well. it kind of feels as though that we've turned into almost like a factory of, we're just gonna continually pump out these like middling products that are just gonna flounder while no one's able to like get a hold of the rudder to like fully steer the ship. It's just crazy. The Lindelof thing that really bums me out. I vaguely remember us during Celebration as well, seeing like the entire like announcement panel of movies and everything that was going to be directed. And then just basically you could go through and eliminate 75% of those announcements. That's, oh my gosh, that's brutal. That's brutal. Yeah.
I'll add.
No.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish. No, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna add. Oh yeah, please. This is why filming live is the best. Go ahead, Tanner. This is all you, 100%.
Riverside is its latency is awesome. I love it. But I don't know. I just it's weird to think that Andor has been the only product so far that I've been like, wow, this is something truly, truly special. And the more that we could get of something like that, I think that would be incredible. However, on the flip side, I do understand, being like an older Star Wars fan, that Star Wars is kind of there. It's okay if some Star Wars stories have moved past me, because it's meant for kids, or meant for monetization and making like the new
me.
Right. It's for me, damn it. But it's, yeah. I like those levels of stories, but I also understand that Andor is a very special thing, and not all Star Wars should be Andor, because I wouldn't say that Andor is a particularly kid-friendly show, with the nuance, politics, plots, subtlety, whereas
not.
Mando is very much above the board of like, woo, we get to see Mando and baby Grogu on adventures, let's go! And yeah, so I mean, it just bums me out that what is it? There was that article that you sent me, Al, that Kathleen Kennedy's job is on the chopping block if she doesn't get a movie out before 2025. That's insane to me. Like,
that's the rumor.
How long have we gone without any sort of major Star Wars movie release? Like, it just blows my mind.
Speaking of that, I like that point you brought up, because so the thing since episode 8, it's been years, is that everybody wants Kathy out. That's been like the big push, that her contract was going to end a few years ago. She's going to be out. And the big thing was that Dave Filoni was going to take over. That didn't happen. She got re-upped. And when you look from a producer standpoint, which their job's to make money, not necessarily great content. They think they want to do great content, and Kathy's an all-time great producer. But she has had way more hits than she has had misses. Still, Mando is still a loved show. Is it dipping right now? Okay, but we're halfway through the 3rd season, and I think most people would agree that the first 2 seasons rock. I mean, everything has basically made money except for Solo. So I think it's real interesting that this rumor is that she is officially on the chopping block. Her contract will end at the end of 2024. And I do think that makes a lot of sense. That if we're not going to get a movie out by then, I think waiting for a Star Wars movie is fine. I think waiting's all good. But I don't want to hear a million problems. They're not making a movie right now. There's no movie being shot. There's no movie being storyboarded. There's nothing happening except people in a room writing a script that somebody keeps throwing out. So do you guys think that will happen? That if she doesn't get a movie out, she will be gone? And do you think she should be gone? Let's start with Kyle.
Yes, I do think... Honestly, I think she'll be gone even if a movie does get greenlit, to be honest. Because if we learn from the Bob Chapek contracts mean nothing.
So why wouldn't she be fired now?
Because they probably still want to have a glowing look on Lucasfilm, and they probably would like a Star Wars project on the scale of theatrical release to be announced. But even if one does get greenlit and they go through and we actually pick a damn project, I still wouldn't be shocked if she does walk away, like in the midst of that or even after that release.
Tanner, what do you think?
So one of the things that was actually brought up in the article, and I actually wouldn't be surprised about this. I know that me and you tend to be a lot more of the similar ilk of that. A lot of people place a lot of blame on Kathleen Kennedy, which I think is unfairly done. Do I think that some of it belongs there? Yes, but not to the degree that everybody talks about. Kathleen Kennedy just straight up ruining Star Wars.
I would agree.
That's insane. But to that point, I think I remember reading that there was rumors that she might leave after the release of the Compass of Destiny, Indiana Jones and the Compass of Destiny.
I remember that too.
That makes, I guess to a certain point that makes sense that she would do that.
Dial of Destiny.
Sorry. That makes sense that would be that would happen. I think that she might just be like, this has been an absolute shit show, and I need to be out of this. So I would totally understand if she was just like, nope, this is my time to dip. The real question is I do think between now and 2025 that Kathleen Kennedy leaves head of Lucasfilm. Whether that be of her volition or whether that be of hey, you're gone. I honestly couldn't say what the situation is going to be on that. Now, I will say that if Kathleen cannot, being the head of Lucasfilm, cannot get together a movie or something like a solid, let's put this into theaters and get people going to Star Wars in the theaters before 2025, then I probably do think that she needs to be someone else needs to take those reins, because when was the last major Star Wars movie release?
2019.
Whenever episode 9 came out. I'll fact check and double check Kyle, but I think he's right.
4 years now. And not saying that I don't want a yearly. I'd much rather have special Star Wars projects, maybe like one movie every 2 years. But we've gone 4 years now without it. That's absurd. Meanwhile, they're churning out Star Wars series on Disney Plus like they're going out of style.
Could I chime in on that aspect?
They've also had issues. Go ahead, Kyle.
I do want to chime in on that aspect because 2020 did happen. It was COVID year. Theaters were shut down. I get why they weren't focusing on like Star Wars movies at that point. Even though you would hope they would like develop them, I get why they didn't. But I do agree that when it comes to the growth of streaming because of COVID with all these companies, it did become a learning path for them where they thought more for a streaming service is better. And I think Star Wars was unfortunately a big part of that learning curve, to where they realized that just because you're putting out more and it's very middling, it's very middling in terms of like its appeal or in terms of how great it looks, then it's not going to convince people that they want to be on streaming all the time. And I think studios are starting to come around to that and are starting to pivot back towards a good mixture of theatrical and streaming, a good healthy amount, whereas earlier they were thinking that theatrical was dead, and that's why they went with the more is better option on the streaming side of it. So I'm really hoping now we start to see them start becoming like this factory description that you were kind of saying that they have become, to where they're just pumping out all this Star Wars stuff and it just loses its meaning, especially for something like Star Wars is. So yeah, go ahead, Al.
And
go for it.
Can I chime in on that? I think that is a huge issue with Bob Chapek, because he took over just before COVID had come out, and he was the stream guy, and I think that's why we saw his kind of surprise firing and Bob Iger coming back. And ever since then, we had heard reports Kevin Feige is spread too thin in Marvel, and then suddenly Kevin Feige's not making a Star Wars project anymore. He is mainly focused on Marvel. I think Bob Iger came in and said, hey, guy, people are complaining about some of your projects. We have VFX artists complaining. We got to get rid of this crazy lady, apparently, who's running it like a crazy town. I don't know, but like you need to focus on you. And I think he came in like everybody said Ron Howard came in to Solo. He just kind of came in and was like, all right, calm down. And I think that's what Bob Iger's focus has been. If Kathy wants to stay at Lucasfilm, I think she not only needs to get out one movie, but the one movie needs to be critically well received, and it not only needs to be audience well received, but it needs to bring She needs to get on YouTube, and the response to that movie, everyone saying Star Wars is back. Oh my gosh, it's back again. It's the same feeling I had when The Force Awakens came out. I want to see a new Star Wars movie in the theater. That's what she needs to do. I'm not sure she'll do it. It would be wild if she is not, if maybe there's like a forced resignation happening, that maybe Bob Iger is saying, look, Kathy, you've done an amazing job. You've brought in a lot of money. No matter how many YouTube people say you haven't done a great job, you actually have. At Star Wars Celebration, I think we announce that you are passing the torch like George did to you, essentially, and you announce who's taking over at Lucasfilm. You'll get nothing but love and praise. It won't be a firing, Could you imagine if that's one of the big announcements in a week, is that she says, I'm stepping down from the head of Lucasfilm. We've got all these great projects that I kind of helped say, all right, here's the new people. This is a great idea. I'm going to let them take over. That's very possible. I don't know if it happens. I also think waiting maybe till Indiana Jones, like Tanner said, is a good idea for her to go out on top of something and she was a producer on the original Indiana Jones. So that even makes more sense than Star Wars. Because I don't believe she was a producer on the original Star Wars. I think she kind of joined with George and more on Indy. So, because she was mainly Spielberg. She was much more Spielberg side with, I believe, Jurassic Park and E.T. and all these movies. So, I think both of those would make sense. And it would make more sense for her not to wait for her contract to end and her saying, I'm stepping down. I think I've done an amazing job. Indiana Jones is my last kind of big hit. Here's who's going to take over. And maybe she announces at Celebration. Maybe none of this happens. We've been speculating that Kathy's out for years, and it hasn't happened. But you guys got any thoughts on anything there? Or any other
particularly to
points?
That, Al, I want to field this question to everyone. So you had talked about Kathy needs to get a movie out, and it needs to be critically acclaimed and loved by the fan base, and Star Wars is back. So, a question to both of you guys. What is that Star Wars movie, or is it a trilogy? And who is directing it? What's the flavor?
Kyle, you start that one.
I do think it has to be a trilogy. I think Star Wars is known as like the trilogy franchise in a sense, and I think they have to stick with that. Also, if they don't do spin-off movies anymore, I'm totally fine with that. But I think it would be an announcement as a trilogy, and we see that it's going to become
I have a question.
The Stephen Knight movie. At least he's writing it. I forget who the director is. It's I think it's like a documentary director. Remember off the top of my head.
I got it right here. Give me 2 seconds. I got it right here.
I think it's gonna wind up being that project. I don't see us coming around and suddenly it's like, oh, turns out it's J.D. Dillard. Like I don't like he was announced 2017 or whatever. I don't think we're gonna suddenly loop around.
Shireen. I'm not even gonna attempt Shireen's last name. It's difficult. I apologize for the butcher. I'm not even gonna attempt. But Shireen is planning to be the director of this film that this writer's room is making.
And I
will look up what he has done.
Yeah, I would imagine it's gonna be that project because.
Oh, it's a woman.
Project. Yeah, I thought it might have been a female. Again, I just am unfamiliar.
I
with her.
didn't know. Shireen is a woman who has produced a lot. Let's see, directing credits here. Whoops. I only want directing credits. Worked on Miss Marvel. And then a lot of things it looks like overseas. Just different movies. Some look like documentaries, some do not. But it looks like first kind of big project was a show called Fundamental, a TV miniseries, and then as well as Miss Marvel.
Okay.
So, and she's won 2
offense
Oscars.
To her, of course, but such a random choice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Marvel showed us that yes, this could. Is there nerves that it's a random choice? Yes, But maybe they're like, maybe it's a James Gunn situation and she goes on to absolutely obliterate it and knock it out of the park. The fact that it's just a woman alone, I'm like, all right, sounds amazing. Let's get a woman Star Wars in here. I've never seen that. That sounds phenomenal. That's what made Patty Jenkins' movie not only so exciting because she was so passionate about it, but that it was just a different take. But, so let's see what the kid has.
What about you, Al?
Doing some eyebrow thing. I think giving her an opportunity is a good move. I might get some hate. I do think that if you really, really, really want to wow fans, you let Rian Johnson make his trilogy, and you let him do it. I'm telling you. You take episode 8 out of it, okay? Take it out for a second. He's only made freaking phenomenal movies. If you take episode 8 out, which is divisive, a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it, but if you take that out, I have never seen him make a bad movie. And he is a phenomenal writer. Let him go 1,000 years in the future, 1,000 years in the past, and do whatever the heck he wants to do, and he would make a phenomenal choice. The other director I think would be great to come in is I would say Denis Villeneuve. It's a pipe dream. He has said he doesn't want to do it. Taking that out of the equation, because he would be my top choice after Dune, but taking him out, I think you get Ryan Coogler to write and direct a Star Wars movie. He can bring Michael B. Jordan. He doesn't have to bring Michael B. Jordan. Do whatever the heck he wants to do, but that sounds freaking phenomenal to me. I think all of those would be great choices to get back into it. If Kathy steps down, I think Dave Filoni's the smartest choice. I don't think you let Jon Favreau do it too. I don't think Jon Favreau would want to do it. I think Jon would prefer to be like, I'm going to do this, because I think at some point he's not going to want to do Mando anymore. He's going to want to do other things. But that would be another great option, is if they say, all right, Dave Filoni is taking head of Lucasfilm. The first movie we got is going to be a movie written and directed by Jon Favreau. That alone, every Star Wars fan in the galaxy would be like, yep, that's what I wanted. There we go. This is great. Love it. Unless season 3 of Mando sucks, everybody will say he was always garbage. But anyway, what do you think, Tanner?
It's funny that you brought this one up. Olivia was we were actually discussing like things that we wanted out of Star Wars and various stories and whatnot. And she brought up an excellent point with something like Clone Wars. Because after we had done our watch through, I still love, and I know I'm going to get some hate after I say this from some people, I adore Clone Wars, and I absolutely think it's incredible. I was surprised when we went through our watch through, and I was going on the whole episodes I liked versus disliked. Clone Wars doesn't actually have as good, for as lauded as that show is, it does not have an amazing batting average. There are some very high highs and very low lows in that show. But
I would agree.
Something that is,
except the Darksaber and the Mandalorians. Just poking fun at Kyle here.
So, what's amazing to me about that though is the ending of the Clone Wars was so incredible. The fact that they were able to land that
so
and then make such an incredible ending, even though you've got all of those like middling episodes that exist in it, the fact that they were able to make an incredible ending to it, it is now, Clone Wars will forever be talked about as an amazing show because of it as well. Compare that to something like Game of Thrones, where you've got 5 to 6 seasons of great show and then garbage at the end, and now nobody wants to touch the original show because of it. Now it's so important.
Yeah, now the whole show is horrible.
I think that just illustrates the point, though, of how important it is to have a good ending to a show. I would argue that is even more important than like how your middle and even beginning can go.
I would agree.
I think between Lost Game of Thrones, Dexter, all of those have gone to show us these like lauded shows that everybody loved that had garbage endings are now talked about in these like venomous ways. So something like Mando needs that. Otherwise, to that point of like people are gonna be like, "Oh, Favreau was garbage because of it." I've circled around a lot, but to I guess what my point that of movie and director that I'd like to bring in. He's talked about a lot, but oh man, I would love to get Craig Mazin in on Star Wars. Oh my God, would I love for him to write a script, either show or movie. I think that would just be so incredible. Between his work on Chernobyl and The Last of Us, I'm like, please let him. Oh,
that would be cool.
Let him get his hands on it. The character drama alone that we've seen in The Last of Us is like, man. But with him being so like ingrained in HBO, that's a pipe dream. I don't think that one's happening. But yeah.
Side note, can I have a side note real quick, Tam Man? It's crazy that Craig wrote Scary Movie 3, 4, and Superhero Movie, and then wrote other just bad things, and then all of a sudden made he made The Huntsman, The Winter's War, not good, and then he was like, all right, I'm over this. Writes Chernobyl, 5 episodes of Chernobyl, and then writes the entire Last of Us. Insane. And then Mythic Quest, which is another show he helped write for, and apparently that's a pretty good show. So.
Great.
No, you're totally right. I was talking.
Oh my God.
I was looking up his work, and I was like, man, there's his top 2, Chernobyl.
Wild.
Like Scary Movie. What is going on here? But anyways,
It's wild.
I think what would do a good job of roping in all Star Wars fans, and being critically acclaimed, exactly like you're talking about, 1,000 years in the future. 1,000 years in the past. Get someone that's got a good track record to write it, and then get a solid director to come in. Not too many fingers in the pie.
And let me add something again. Yeah, let them make their thing is what I was going to say. Not only bring them in who are good, let them do their thing. We'll never know if Colin Trevorrow would have made a great movie. He has made I think a fine Jurassic World movie and a couple of like indie movies. He made some bad Jurassic World movies, but I'll never know. I would have rather known that than JJ coming in and just half taking his stuff, half keeping his whatever Chris Terrio wants to write, and it just, not good. But I'm curious, real quick. Go ahead.
Would it be if you did it 1,000 years in the future? Of like you're watching a Star Wars movie and you can't even tell it's a Star Wars movie until some young kid walks up and finds like an ancient civilization that is like Coruscant, like a buried Coruscant or something, and then what's up,
Tanner? I can tell you right now what you're pitching. I love, but I can see it. I can see Kyle watching that show, and we're 5 episodes in this incredibly detailed, dark drama about a kid who's like a guy who's an archaeologist or something, and all of a sudden at the end of one of the episodes he's brushing away as he thinks he's found something big, and he pulls out a lightsaber, and I can see Kyle going like this and just hating it. Kyle would be like, you've ruined this show. They didn't ignite it. They didn't do anything. They found it. And Kyle will be like, I hate it.
100%.
Sorry, I'm roasting you.
But how cool would that?
Let us have our fun.
How cool would that be to have like a full like a reset of people rediscovering what the Jedi and the Sith are, and then you have the explosion that comes from that as like there's some galaxy-wide spanning thing that just wiped out the societies as we know it, and all of a sudden like technology has to revert. Hyperspace isn't anywhere near as common anymore. It's ideas are flowing. Or the other idea, Old Republic.
Oh. Yes. Of course. Old Republic is what we need. Real quick, though, I thought of it even better with Tanner saying, like, technology's reverted. It's like an Earth-like planet, and it's a story that just seems so grounded in reality. And then they find the lightsaber, and the next episode it turns out that this kid's got to be the Jedi on this planet that hasn't actually evolved yet into hyperspace. It's us. We're that planet. Kyle, you're the one who's acting in the movie. You find the lightsaber. Will you answer the call? Let's write it. I just wrote your movie, Kathy.
Such a mediocre
I wrote it.
Guy like myself just living on Earth, and all of a sudden he gets wrapped up in a giant Star Wars adventure.
Now that's a film. That's a movie.
I'm in on it, baby.
Earth finally becomes canon with Star Wars.
All that aside, I do want to hear, Kyle, your perspective on Tanner and I's points on directors that we were considering bringing in, or writers, because you are more like you're not a common film goer, but I would say you're much more a little bit above a common Star Wars fan. You got a little bit more knowledge in the bank, but you were more common compared to Tanner and I, who would literally murder for Star Wars. So, what do you think about our suggestions? Are they all garbage, or are you incorrect?
I mean, in terms of the creatives you guys are pitching, I'm all for great storytellers to be a part of Star Wars, so I'm not going to argue against any of those. Any one of those choices would be fine with me.
Smart move.
I personally would rather it just be progressing forward in Star Wars rather than, like, going back in time and, like, explaining how the Force came to be and this and that. Like, for Star Wars, I just personally don't need to know about, like, how the lore began. I'm not sure if even the common public really needs to know that either. Like, we've just been so accustomed to Star Wars being what it is that it's fine. So I'm just more forward thinking for, like, the franchise, but I also just wouldn't be against like, the overarching enemy to not be, like, set in stone already compared to, like, what A New Hope or The Force Awakens did. I kind of would like to see, like, the threat kind of growing like it did in the prequels, but have it be the same sort of adventure story and the overcoming of power of the enemy that kind of happens in the prequels, and have a trilogy kind of go in that direction where we get a good sense of, like, both prequel and original trilogy in terms of, like, how they arc. So that's the kind of thing that I just enjoy with Star Wars, is the adventure aspect of it. And I think just having the threat be like a slow progression to power rather than just we're right in the thick of it, I think that would be, it would feel like the same story maybe, but I at least think it would be a good element to add within it.
It needs to be away from the Skywalkers. It needs to be away from the Skywalkers.
That too. Yeah, I'm totally down with that as well. Exactly. Move away.
And there's really
totally fine.
nowhere else to go with. There's nowhere else really to go at this point with Skywalkers. They're gone. If you go 1,000 years in the future, it would be cool to have Luke be referenced still as, like, this legend at this point, that he was this insane, like, superhero figure. But as we're winding down, because we're getting close to the end of the time, a couple quick things that I had thought of when, Kyle, you were talking at Star Wars Celebration. I do think what we'll get is we'll get footage of Skeleton Crew. It sounds like that show has been filming and been going and not really having any issues. I am excited for that one. I think we're going to get some Ahsoka footage, and as well as a few other projects. Hopefully we get a nice real assurance, even though no matter what they say, until that movie has a trailer, I don't think anybody will believe that it was good. And honestly, most fans won't even think that production went great until 2 years after that movie's released and out, that we don't hear anything later about it. It's going to be a long time. What?
That even if they do announce, like, a theatrical Star Wars title, they did that with Rogue Squadron. Like, they had, like...
Yeah, they did it with other things, too.
A marketing video of, like, Patty Jenkins being like, this is the new movie, and I like jets, and planes are cool, and then it just went into the ground. So just because they announce this doesn't mean anything. So we still need to pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, which has always been true. They were copying Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige's been doing that for a while with these big, this is what's happening, and most of what Kevin says, for the most part, there are things that have not happened, but he actually usually is like, no, we had to tweak this, we moved this, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. But, yeah, maybe what we need to do is we need to have Tan Man back on in 10, 11 days for Star Wars Celebration after all that news comes out, because I'm sure he'd love to chat about it. But does anybody have any final thoughts as we end here?
So
anything else?
I think it just circles back around to me of less cooks in the kitchen. Let's back off on the release schedule. Focus on quality content. That's what Bob Iger, I know, has been talking about. And let creatives be their thing and stop the meddling. That's generally my thoughts on Star Wars right now.
I think Bob Iger looked at Disney Plus losing money or not making much, and then he said, didn't you make a movie that cost us $500 million but it made $1 billion? And Kathy was like, oh yeah, we've done that a couple times. And he's like, why the heck did you stop doing that? I left for 3 years and you guys stopped making $1 billion products and started making products that lose us money. Where's my $1 billion? Streaming's clearly not the future. Where's my billion? I freaking love Daddy Iger. All right. Well, for us, guys, what do you think of everything we talked about? Comment below, let us know. Like, subscribe, and share. Go thank you to the patrons, all that good stuff. See you again soon. And as always, thanks for watching, Mom.
Bye-bye.